are back with another Mission Impossible episode review, looking to get back into the swing of things. It's been a little slow for me lately, but like I said, trying to get back. Anyway, today I'm doing Season 6, Episode 16, which is called The Glass Cage. So Jim goes to an airport and uses a viewfinder-like machine for his instructions. The mission is to get political prisoner Anton Reisner out of Trask prison behind the Iron Curtain, where he's being tortured for information by Warden Nicholas Zelenko about his resistance movement. Off the team goes after a brief apartment scene. We are shown Reisner in the titular glass cage, where he's being subjected to loud sounds as torture to get him to talk. Zelenko gets a call from Colonel Jim telling him that he and Rollin will be coming to conduct an interrogation of Reisner, who is unshackled for the time being, with access to his cage logged in a book. And Zelenko warns him that he will turn him into a vegetable if he doesn't comply quickly. Reisner, that is. Cinnamon arrives as senior security official Anna Nealis under a code name, with Willie and Barney also arriving as prisoners. Zelenko orders Cinnamon to be searched, surprising second-in-command Gulka, but Zelenko explains that if she is who she says she is, she will expect it, and they have to be doubly sure of everyone, as Reisner's people may be making a move. Zelenko calls Security HQ, intercepted by Rollin, and speaks to Jim, who confirms that Cinnamon's presence may indeed be a trap. Cinnamon comes to Zelenko's office, tells him she's here to inspect the prison, and not about any political matters such as his impending promotion. Zelenko receives a call and tells Cinnamon that another Anna Nealis has arrived, and that woman is brought in. Cinnamon steals herself and says she sees through the ruse, impressing Zelenko. Zelenko shows her the master control room in Reisner's prison area, talking about the logbook and various other protection mechanisms they have. Colonel Jim and Major Rollin arrive, and Cinnamon seems a bit surprised to see Rollin, as they seem to have a history. Cinnamon switches briefcases with Rollin as she heads off with Gulka to continue investigating the prison, and asks him about Zelenko's coming promotion and how he feels about being in charge, until a permanent replacement is found. Gulka bristles at not being the one who will be in charge long term, but tries to keep a brave face. In the file room, Cinnamon swaps Reisner's record with an IMF planted record and takes a look at Willie's and Barney's files as well. She then heads to Reisner's cell, where Rollin is trying to get answers from the perpetually silent Reisner. Cinnamon quietly puts a device under the console before the IMF members head away. Back in Zelenko's office, he tells Cinnamon that Rollin was unsuccessful in getting information out of Reisner, and Reisner will undergo a brain surgery to try and get him to talk. Cinnamon tells him that Rollin is also being considered for the position that he aims for, which bothers Zelenko, obviously. She tells Zelenko that she is the one who has to make the decision, and is trying to keep her personal feelings aside. She asks Zelenko to come by her hotel that night so that she doesn't find herself alone with Major Rollin, and he agrees. On her way out, Cinnamon inspects a solitary confinement area, where she's able to leave a package for Willie and Barney. Cinnamon also gets to see that there is an electrified floor leading away from the area, towards Reisner's area. Cinnamon and Rollin have a spat for Zelenko's benefit at the hotel, and Rollin slinks away. The package contains a bunch of goodies for Barney and Willie, such as thermite to bust out of their cell. Meanwhile, the device Cinnamon planted earlier goes off, releasing anesthetic gas into the master control room. Barney shoots off a flare to cover up a security camera, and then a javelin to create a rope zipline, which they use to create a path over the electrified floor. Reisner sees them get to the master control room, and Barney finds the security tape with the evidence of their flare guns and whatnot, and uses a device to wipe the tape. Barney uses a code to indicate to Reisner that he is a friend, and gives him instructions on how to proceed, opening the door to Reisner's cell, but telling him not to come out yet. He locks the door again, and Willie cuts the power so that they can get back to the cell area quickly, with the two allowing themselves to get caught trying to escape. Zelenko returns to the prison, furious at Gulka for almost allowing an escape. He finds that Willie's and Barney's files planted by Cinnamon are obvious forgeries. Zelenko realizes the clumsy attempt is likely a diversion and checks on Reisner. Investigating the control room, they find some of the IMF devices, and Zelenko notices that the cell door was opened, but lies to Cinnamon and says that it was not. so as not to cost himself the promotion he wants. He shows Gulka the book after Cinnamon leaves, and they check the tapes, seeing the flare guns go off and Barney and Willie going back to their cells. Zelenko goes into Reisner's cell area as Cinnamon returns with Jim and Roland. Zelenko calls out to Reisner, who answers him, as per Barney's instructions, shocking both Zelenko and Gulka, as Reisner has never spoken a word to them before. Zelenko realizes that the resistance must have substituted someone for Reisner, and that was the plan all along. Unknown to him, the entire master control room is listening to their conversation about covering the matter up. Cinnamon, as Anna tells Roland to go after Zelenko, who goes out to the file room to get Reisner's fingerprints to verify them, while Cinnamon and Jim talk to Gulka, who tells them the truth. Zelenko is brought back to the control room, realizing the depths of Gulka's betrayal, and also realizing that he's being framed. The man in the glass cage must actually be Reisner, and the fingerprints should match. But of course, they don't. Zelenko is hauled away. Anna instructs Gulka to have Barney, Willie, and Reisner taken to the prison gate so they can be taken to headquarters for questioning. Mission accomplished. I'm going to give this episode a grade of an A-. There is a lot of good in this episode, some nice high spots. It's not a very flashy episode, but I'll mention some of the good things. Willie and Barney getting through that electrified hallway, that whole sequence and what they do in the master control room to actually execute the mission, really, really good. Visually, it's great, and procedurally, just kind of following it along, good and tense. I love sequences like that. Also good, teamwork on the part of the team. It's Barney and Willie do most of the heavy lifting here. Cinnamon's part is important. Jim and Roland don't get a lot of the action here. Especially Jim's part is pretty minimal. So as in terms of it being a true Power of 5 episode, I'd say not quite. Although, like I said, the teamwork is pretty good. Also good. The guest stars are really good. Lloyd Bachner as Zelenko is always good. The real MVP for me is Larry Linville, who you may recognize from shows like MASH. He is perfect as the second in command. He plays that role in a lot of episodes, and he's just kind of like obsequious, I think is the word that you would use. He's kind of this quiet guy, but he's always thinking and always plotting, and it comes across just in his mannerisms and his facial expressions and his voice. It's really, really effectively used in this episode, and I think he's perfect for something like this. I was going to rate this a little bit lower because there was a point that I rated as kind of not so good, but I thought about it a little bit more. One thing that bothered me initially was, in this mission, that, the target is supposed to be Anton Reisner. But, of course, the whole episode focuses around manipulating Zelenko as the warden. And I thought, at first I thought that wasn't so good. But then I realized, they have to do that. There's no way, even in the apartment scene, Jim says there's no way to get Reisner out of the prison. They can't get him out, so they're going to have to get the prison staff, prison apparatus, to take Reisner out for them. So the whole point of the episode, the whole point of the mission, is about that manipulation and misdirection. They're going to need a fall guy. Somewhere, somebody's going to have to screw up, and somebody's going to have to take the hit for what they're going to do. It's unavoidable. So from that standpoint, what I thought was something that was not so good is actually fine. It is important because that's really the only way to accomplish the mission. And they laid the foundation for that in the beginning of the episode. Sometimes they don't do that, and that's when I will definitely call the writers out on it. But in this case, it's okay. The reason I would not put this episode up towards the top, even A- I think might be a bit of a stretch. B+ maybe more where it's suited to, but I'll be generous and give it an A-. It's really bothersome to me when the IMF is able to tilt the playing field as much as sometimes they do. In most episodes, they do have to tilt the playing field in their direction. They seem to have, impeccable information about the layout of buildings, and a whole lot of intelligence about things that are happening, behind the Iron Curtain or someplace where they really shouldn't have really good information. But they do, right? They have a whole. We see it many times where they have an entire layout of a building or whatever. And there has to be some of that because there has to be a way to accomplish the mission, and B, they are supposed to be a very elite force. So it's reasonable for them to have access to certain things which might seem kind of out of the ordinary. That's fine. Here, though, I have a bit of a problem where this entire plot, this entire mission, hinges on Cinnamon becoming Ananilis, who is the head of security for an entire country. And I'm thinking to myself, how in the world did they pull that off? And moreover, if the IMF is capable of pulling that off, what can't they do? If you can't, we've already seen lots of episodes where, somebody is able to impersonate somebody perfectly, right down to their face and their voice. And again, it's problematic. Sometimes we kind of hand wave that away and say, well, it's necessary to the mission. And in some episodes, they at least lay some foundation for it, which again is not so bad. We actually see Roland making a mask, or we see him studying a person, which makes it a little bit more realistic. But in this case, if we're talking about them dealing at the level of a country where the IMF is able to, insert one of their own as somebody who is essentially the top security minister, what can't they do? It really decreases the level of difficulty. For sake of argument, if it was like that, why can't the IMF find a way to impersonate the prime minister or the premier of such a country, right? Heck, I'm sure, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm sure in some episodes they do actually do that. And that's where, it kind of loses it for me. There's no foundation laid for that at all. We don't know how they did it. We don't see the mechanism by which it works. And that is really, I think, a flaw in this episode, which is why I'm giving it a lower grade than a lot of other episodes in which the flow is a whole heck of a lot better. Anyway, that's the end of that. That's my review of this episode. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Please leave your comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.